The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is an American tradition that has a history you could never even begin to guess. So I'm going to get into it before we start this list. The inaugural Macy's Christmas Parade was conceived and orchestrated by James A. Gould, Macy's advertising manager. It emerged from the collective desire of store executives at the time to commemorate the expansion of the Macy's Herald Square into the world's largest store earlier that year. So, fun stuff going on in New York at the time. And the event's debut, it was a collaborative effort put on by the store's workforce, significant number of whom were first generation European immigrants. So they drew inspiration from the street festivals of their homelands. They brought it over to New York, USA. They created a festive atmosphere reminiscent of the celebrations they held to mark special occasions and good fortune. And that's the story of how it started. So, almost every year since 1924, and I'll get to that almost later on, don't worry, parade has taken place. First parade actually was not documented very well, but 10,000 people came. They showed the public that, yeah, you know what? We want something fun to do on Thanksgiving. We want a little more tradition rather than just football and eating, let's have a parade. So now when you think of Thanksgiving, you think of the parade. So I'm sure the first thing that comes to mind thinking of the parade is the balloons. At least it is for me. I'd wake up every single Thanksgiving morning as a kid, and I'd look forward to seeing what balloons were going to be into the parade that morning. Any given year, I was excited. So, looking into the history of these balloons for this list, it made me realize that the Macy's Parade balloon lore goes way deeper than I ever would have thought. And I hope to share this with you, just some random crap I found. And this video turned out being much more interesting than I could ever imagine. So, without further ado, here are my top 5 best balloons in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade history. Before I talk about the balloons in my list, though, I think a very quick history lesson is in order to make sure we are all on the same page. So, the Macy's Day Parade in 1924 started. There were no balloons. There was actually live animals that the New York Zoo let them use to parade around the street. But obviously, that had to change. So, in 1928, the animals, it might not have changed for why you thought, though. You might think, oh, well, yeah, that's not very humane. They weren't really thinking about that in the 20s. 28, though, they brought the animals back to the zoo, not to the parade. Kids thought they were too scary, actually. So that's why they were gone. And the first 8 balloons ever were introduced, starting the balloon tradition. So, 1928, first year with balloons. That was way earlier than I thought. Go on to 1928 to 1980, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, the one that you're thinking of, same one, they're the first manufacturer of these balloons. So they work in hand with Macy's. They use their rubber. They're very good with rubber, obviously, tire company, and they help them make these balloons. Though in 1981, Kemp Balloons Incorporated takes over, and they fixed up, refurbished all the remaining balloons in the parade. You can only have so many balloons every year, so some stay, some go, but the ones that were left, they took over from Goodyear. They fixed them. They only made 3 balloons on their own. These are the 3 that they made I have on screen. So they only fixed balloons. They were only around for 3 years, and not many companies really manufacture these balloons. So this is just a weird little transitional company because in 1984 till 2019, Raven Aerostar was asked by Macy's to create balloons. They remade a lot of old classics, along with some new favorites. I'm just so excited by balloons, guys. You'll get it by the end of the video, I promise. Only 4 balloons in their 35-year run were not made by Raven Aerostar, just for some weird little side projects or whatnot. Besides those, they made all of them up until 2019, when finally, this is what I thought always was the case, but learned to find out Macy's now makes the balloons. I thought that was always the case, not till 2019. So Macy's Parade Studio and Signs and Shape International now create all the balloons. So now we're caught up. With that out of the way, I hope you're starting to realize how many balloons I had to look through to make this list. I looked through every single one, so I knew what the top 5 best were. So with the majority of years since 1928 having more than 1 new balloon per year, I spent over an hour just looking at every balloon to create this list. No research or anything, just looking at pictures. So Speaking of the list, the reason you clicked on this video, let's start off with my 5th favorite balloon, Betty Boop. When I first saw this balloon, something about it just felt very welcoming and cozy. And to me, that's one of the things this parade's about. She's been in the parade from 85 to 87. After a hiatus, came back in 91 and 92. In another hiatus, 95 to 96. That's not super common, as you'll learn to find out. Raven Aerostar made her, along with pretty much every other balloon on this list. And she is a giant 67 feet tall. One of the biggest balloons in the parade ever. It was made for the 1985 parade to commemorate Betty Boop's 55th birthday. So, like I said, it's a huge balloon. It weighs 425 pounds. It needs 40 people to guide it along the parade route. But looking at these pictures, you can just see how much that size adds to the aura of this balloon. Jesus Christ, did I just say the aura of this balloon? Can't believe I'm making this video. I mean, just look at this. The moon is what just sets it over the top for me. Contrast of the red, the yellow, they make it eye-popping, and the gray skyline in New York. So the details in the back are also nothing to scoff at. I have not even mentioned Betty herself. They really nailed the classic appearance while still keeping it kid-friendly, you know? Other things that stood out to me are the details on the moon's nose, its spots, Betty's tie. Just, all around great design. These features, they could have been printed out, you know? They could have just been printed on, not 3D, three-dimensional, but they were crafted to be three-dimensional. Thought that was pretty cool. The usual balloon only lasts 3 straight years, then they're retired from the parade. They're sent to the Macy's warehouse, if they're lucky. And they meet a fate that's only known to a few select employees and people who can see the warehouse. But Betty, she was in the parade for a respectable 7 years, as we saw. So that's more than the usual 3 or less that majority of balloons are shown in. The record is 23, in case you were wondering, and it is held by Happy Dragon and Bullwinkle. But since Bullwinkle's 23 years were 23 in a row, I'm calling the Moose the winner of this argument. Now, as what I learned is very common about most balloons is they get damaged a lot. At first, I was thinking about how rare it is to hear about these balloons popping or getting torn. Then I came out to find out just how windy New York can get during this time of the year. And I actually found that most balloons with multiple years in the parade have at least had one accident going along the route. In fact, during the notoriously windy 1986 Macy's parade, Betty Boop completely deflated and was not able to cross the finish line. This actually caused NBC to use footage from the previous year's Betty appearance instead of showing the crumpled icon, helpless to finish the race she started. With this being said, I'm not going to talk about every incident about every balloon on this list, but keep in mind that most have fallen to Mother Nature or pure incompetence. One blog user found this parade on his father's collection and wrote about their rewatch with clips and everything. It's a pretty cool time capsule, and I'd actually recommend checking it out if this interests you. But yeah, this balloon is iconic. I'm happy to have it in my top 5. Number 4 is held down by both Skater Snoopy and Millennium Snoopy. Skater Snoopy, 1987, came first, made by Aerostar, 62 feet tall. Millennium Snoopy came in 1999 till 2001, made also by Aerostar and 47 feet tall. In the Macy's parade lore, Snoopy is a continuous character spanning from 1968 all the way up until now, with a total of over 9 completely redesigned balloons. But the 2 Snoopies that I like the most were this one and this one. First, Skater Snoopy embodies the holiday spirit felt in America around the time of this parade, Thanksgiving Day. Christmas is around the corner, it's time to ice skate, and here's Snoopy ice skating through the air. Look how graceful he is. How peaceful. Not a care in the world. He's just doing his thing. But why so low on the list? If this balloon is so cool, you may be thinking. This balloon was the first in 50 years to have a speaker with sounds, playing a Snoopy laugh track along the route. There was even an episode of Reading Rainbow about the modeling and the creation of the balloons. It had the makings to be an all-time classic. But no, it was killed after only 1 year in service. After 1987, Skater Snoopy would never fly again. To be fair, it was replaced by a good balloon, but I do not think this new one captures the same charm as the original. That's just me. Tell me what you think. The hat and the scarf, it was so simple, but it was perfect. The replacement was cool, but not that cool. I don't know. This may be unpopular. Let me know what you think. As should be predicted, in 1995, Snoopy ripped his face off after slamming into a flagpole belonging to Macy's themselves. Snoopy was killed. There would be no Snoopy until 4 years later. Millennium Snoopy arose, and he was awesome. To ring in the new millennium, the year 2000, this balloon once again captures the spirit of the season. To me, the year 2000, turn of the century. It's a cool thing to live through, and I really appreciate when I look back and see advertising or culture at the time be excited for the new year. This balloon with the year 2000 plastered in bold on the front of the noisemaker, his hat signaling a big party and celebration, it's just good vibes all around. You might be thinking, oh no, was this a one-year wonder as well? Well, I'm happy to report, no. They actually used the same balloon the next year because, well, it was actually 2000 now. And in 2001, he instead celebrated the 75th anniversary of the parade. So they gave him another year to stick around. Lasted a 3-year total before being retired. I feel I had to have an iconic holiday character on this list, and these two are the best when compared to all the other Snoopies. Like, these aren't even the mall I'm showing. So I seriously invite you, look more into these balloons on your own if you find them interesting, because for every fact I give, there's like 3 I'm sure to be leaving out. All right, on to number 3 now. Number 3 is the Kraft Mac and Cheese Cheesasaurus Rex. He debuted in 2001, retired in 2003, made by Raven Aerostar, comes in at 52 feet tall. I need to sit up in my chair for this one because I love this guy. This is the first balloon on this list I actually remember seeing. So if you're like, all right, Sean, this one's cool, but like number 3, I will say, screw you. It's my list. Go watch another video on this topic if that is a problem to you. Speaking of, after finishing all my research for this video, I found this awesome playlist by the YouTuber Bry Cowell, where he literally has like 100 videos on all types of balloons that have been in the parade. So check it out after this video. It's pretty cool. Back to this dude. He is the mascot of a mac and cheese company, hence the camera. Say cheese? Get it? Okay. Speaking of the camera, it actually flashes. It makes the Cheese Rex the first balloon ever to have a lighting effect. I love it. He's historic, guys. Come on. Let's be real here. This guy's awesome because he's a giant cheese dinosaur. You know, it's very inviting. It's very happy, at least to 5-year-old me. Very memorable, just super memorable as a child. He's also the first on this list to be made from recycled balloon parts. Thank you to Deadly the Dragon, who completely effed up his first and only appearance in the parade after hitting a lamppost, causing glass to rain down on the crowd below, causing minor injuries to one bystander. He got the Betty Boop treatment, meaning NBC needed to pull the footage from the previous test flight and show it to the live broadcast. Luckily, this forgotten relic helped pave the way for another childhood icon lost to the past. A passing of the torch, if you will. I've been looking at too many balloons, guys. His first flight was in the 2001 parade. It was almost 2 months after a pretty significant world event in the USA, New York specifically. So this led to the addition of the New York Police Department logo on his hat. So extra points for using real-world things in your balloon, akin to Millennium Snoopy. Picturing myself as a New Yorker, November 2001, seeing this big orange dinosaur turn the corner with a New York PD cap on. I respect what the Cheesasaurus Rex did to heal our country. The following year, 2002, they took the logo away, leaving his blue hat and making a political statement in the process. All right, maybe not, but wouldn't that be funny? Okay, It was also in 2002 in the parade where he collided with a Central Park tree, causing his arm to be ripped to shreds, as you can see here. But unlike Skater Snoopy 2.0, the big dinosaur not only brushed it off and finished the race, he was actually repaired and brought back for one last ride along the scenic parade route. And even with some new scars, he conquered that tree that bested him the year before, finished his career with no issues. That's the Cheesasaurus Rex. If you were an early 2000s kid who liked the silly mac and cheese dinosaur from the commercials, you get this. If not, I understand this pick may be too high for you, and to that, I say, go make your own list. He rocks, nothing more I can say. Time for number 2. Bugs Bunny. Debuted in 89, left in 92, made by Raven Aerostar, a staggering 75 feet tall. Oh my goodness, guys. You didn't see this. It's Bugs Bunny. This balloon is awesome and it has everything I would want in the parade. When I think Macy's Thanksgiving parade, I'm thinking turning on my TV in the morning, excited for food, excited for football, and I want to see what classic characters are going to show up. And this one sure shows up. Bugs is one of the biggest balloons of all time. He's only 3 feet below number 2 on the list. Side note, if I asked the average stranger, who is the tallest Macy's balloon of all time, and they pitied me so much to actually answer, would they ever guess that olive oil and sweet pea would be number 1? It's not even a legit number 1 because of the boring balloons at the very top, putting it over at the top of the list. The previous olive oil from the year before had no extra balloons and stood at the same 75 feet as Bugs. So, not legitimate to me. All that to say, though, Bugs Bunny is huge. He's otherworldly. This is Bugs Bunny in a suit and a top hat, munching on a carrot, legs crossed, on a giant star with the number 50 to celebrate his 50th birthday coming up the next year, 1990. I love Bugs. In 1978, Bugs was first pitched to be a balloon 13 years before he actually appeared. The manufacturer at the time, Goodyear Tires and Rubber, did not want the balloon, though, due to Bugs' skinny body. Poor Bugs. He does not deserve to be body shamed. So, 11 years later, Warner Brothers tried to reach out and have the balloon created again for Bugs' 50th birthday, and Raven Aerostar, who took over for Goodyear, agreed to actually manufacture the Bugs balloon. So, as you can see from the design, they fixed him a little bit. They had him sitting, had him with some props, and fixed that issue of making him so skinny. I think they did an awesome job. So, this picture is actually from a test flight done during the Bugs' first appearance in the parade in 1989. This was filmed to be aired as a segment that actually did air during the parade, the live broadcast of it. Find me a more American picture than this. I dare you. Central Park. This is awesome. So, unfortunately, the test flight did go well, but Bugs would need to wait 1 more year to officially join the parade. The day of the 1989 parade, it was a snowy day. This caused Bugs' huge 75-foot tall balloon to turn on its side. There's sandbags inside to weigh it down. If there's rain, it doesn't really affect the sandbags, but something about the snow, I learned, more Macy's lore, the snow makes it tip to its side, the sandbags, and it makes the balloons tip to their side. So, reportedly, Gene McFadden, who was also the former executive producer and director of the parade, she grabbed one of Bugs' ropes to help pull it down, try to balance the balloon out, make it straight. But instead of pulling it down, she actually started to float. She claims to have been over 2 stories in the air screaming for help. And she tells a funny story. She said she looked at a cameraman below yelling for help, and he said he'd help her, but he was just snapping pictures, taking video of her instead of helping her pull the rope down. So she actually decided to slide down the rope, straight up, treasure hunter style. And she said she got a pretty gnarly rope burn. So Bugs was ripped to shreds by trees during this incident. He got deflated, never got to see the parade route. Sure, you might be thinking that Jean, she exaggerated some things, at least I did, but this interview here with her is the only account I could find of this incident, so you're just going to have to take her word for it. But I recommend watching this video from Christina App because Jean's retelling and knowledge of the parade is far better than mine. She tells a great story. Check it out. So, Bugs was down. He was not out, though. he returned the next year, 1990, for his actual 50th birthday, and he made his parade debut. 1991, the balloon was once again back, this time without the 50 on the star, but still looking better than anyone else in the air that year. 1993, though, would sadly be Bug's last Thanksgiving. Gone too soon. To add insult to injury, Bug's final stand included his green carrot stem being ripped by a tree, as if a curse was placed due to the poor choice to kill Bugs too early following this parade. I mean, at least he was able to finish, but sad way to go out for Bugs. It was actually planned to have him back in the 1993 parade alongside Betty Boop, at least giving him one more year, but due to their size, they were both huge, the decision was made to actually cut Bugs to decrease the giant balloons in the parade that year for whatever reason. So these two icons could have been back to back, but just wasn't meant to happen. And allegedly there were promises made saying, all right, Bugs is going to be back in 94 though. We'll give him one more chance. But alas, 92, that was his last year. Believe it or not though, the balloon was actually been confirmed to be around as recently as 2016. It was confirmed via this video. I have the URL at the top. Someone got a tour of the warehouse and they were looking at all these storage containers and they're labeled and one of them said Bugs Bunny. So he's stored away, deflated. Who knows if he's around still, but as of 2016 he was. Maybe there's a chance that one day Bugs will rise from the grave. I'd love to see it. So it's time for some honorable mentions before number one. I'm going to keep this as short as possible for everyone's sake, but these are balloons I wanted to put on the list, but they didn't crack my top 5 for whatever reason. Some are older. I mean, when I was making this list, I was going through from chronological order. I was making the list as I go. A lot of these balloons were on the list, but as we got more modern, balloons became cooler. Had to take some off. So I'm going to say one thing about each of these. I'm going to invite you to look deeper into their history, though, because I'm not going to say everything. These are honorable mentions. Without further ado, here we go. Andy the alligator. Remember how I mentioned that there were some years without a parade earlier? I'm sure you may have guessed that those were war years. 1942 to 1944 to be exact. This guy right here, Andy the alligator, tore his tail open on his second parade ever in 1933. Then he got retired and he eventually had his rubber repurposed for World War II. That's Andy the alligator. Tibby, Tui, and Bumpkus, the Weebles. I had these things as a kid. They're so classic to me, these toys. They did a great job recreating them. These are technically balloonicles. They're balloons on vehicles, and they're an entire subcategory I didn't even mention for this video. So they debuted, the first balloonicles were these three, and they're really cool. They spin around. Big fan. Hummingbird. This is one of the first balloons ever made by Goodyear, and apparently, I guess a tradition they had is at the end of the parade, they'd release these balloons into the air and they tried to have pilots catch them. I couldn't really figure out how they'd do that, but it was a thing they did, I guess. This balloon was tracked down after being released by a radio antenna days later, and it was returned to Macy's for a $100 reward. You might be thinking that's not a lot. In 1928, today, 2023, that would be $1,800. So it was a pretty big research effort. I don't know why they released it and paid that much to get it back. Who knows? But here's my next one. Old Man Dragon. Don't know what's up with these names, but some of these older ones have some weird names. Not the point, sorry. Longest balloon ever made, 179 feet long. This guy is also released in the air, never to be seen again. Pause the video, read this news snippet. Pretty weird stuff. Tiamat. So Tiamat is another beast-themed balloon, and she was also released, as you can see in the picture above. Pretty cool aesthetic, I will say. Just kind of weird that they release them. They can't get them back sometimes. I can see why they stopped doing that. She was actually caught by a legendary aviator named Clarence Chamberlain. This guy was famous for flying from New York to Europe in 1927 with the first ever passenger on his plane to cross the Atlantic Ocean. In an airplane, like ever. First person ever to have someone fly them across the Atlantic Ocean. Pretty cool stuff. He caught the balloon. Old Man Pumpkin was the first of 5 new balloons in the parade after the war. He was retired after a year, probably due to the fact that he's a month late. Come on, dude. It's not Halloween. It's not coming up. Probably the furthest away holiday. But he made one last victory tour in 1947. Personally, I think he's awesome. I love Halloween. Harold, the baseball player, he was part of the Everyman balloon series, depicting balloons of different jobs around America. There's a classic scene in the movie Miracle on 34th Street. One of the characters is giving history about how Harold balloon used to be repurposed as a different balloon. It's a famous movie. It's a famous scene. They actually recreated this balloon, though. It's only had one appearance in 46, and they recreated it in 2017 in the parade to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the movie Miracle on 34th Street. Thought that was very cool. Finally, last honorable mention, it's Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory. Such a classic cartoon for me. That's what this parade should be made of, just classics. Love it. He actually still has the record to this day for the balloon needing the most helium ever to fully inflate. He needs 21,700 cubic feet of helium. Now, on to number one, my favorite balloon ever. I looked at them all. This was the winner. Rugrats. Came in 1997, departed this world in 2001, made by Aerostar, 48 feet tall. This was the show of the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm happy to say they nailed this balloon. This is the cartoon that a generation grew up on, and it got its iconic balloon. That's why it's my number one. Tommy, Chucky, Spike. They make up the first ever trio balloon, 3 characters in this parade's history. They look so happy. They look so joyful. When I first saw this balloon, I knew it was my favorite. Just one look told me how much effort they went into making a design that captures the essence of the show, The Rugrats. They combine that with the spectacle of a huge balloon. My childhood favorite got the perfect float. It made it 5 years before retirement, longer than most balloons could dream of. That made me happy as well. And get this, to promote the new movie Rugrats in Paris, they actually added a beret to Tommy's head. You should all know by now that I love when balloons are updated, and this is just the cherry on top. It was already 1 to me. I found this out. I'm like, oh my goodness, has to be 1. Even better. As if it needed another reason. You gotta love it. In 2001, they even took the beret off and put Tommy's head back on. And they took one final victory lap to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the show. A kids show having so much relevance 10 years later to be in the Macy's parade. Nothing better. And that, everyone, is my top 5 balloons. I was going to make both lists, worst and best, in one video, but this became longer than I could ever imagine, so please let me know what you think below. Went outside of sports for this one, found something cool that I wanted to do, and I just ran with it. Please let me know what you think. I especially want to know if you look into the balloon list. I want to hear what your top 5 are, because I'm sure that with so many balloons, no one's going to have a similar top 5. Stadiums, I feel like there's usually a consensus, and sports things like that, but something with so many variables, I feel like everyone has a different list, and I love that. So let me know what you think. Please look out for my next video, the top 5 worst balloons. I can promise you that one's going to be one with twists and turns that you could never imagine, as I teased earlier. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. I do live premieres for every video. The last one was really fun. We do a live chat along with everyone as watching, and it's a good time. So until next time, this is Sean, and that was my top 5.